Why does anyone deserve anything? Is it a God-given right to be fed?
Do we think this list is the key components to the pursuit of happiness? Like if you and I had to make up a list, even just for us, like what do we think are the keys to pursuing happiness?
Yo, B, let's go. You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
What's up, people? We're back with another episode of Rebel Wisdom. Today we're going to be talking about the regrets of the dead. I think it's going to be a juicy one, so we'll dive right into it. Love getting into these topics. So talking about regrets of the dead, B, do you want to tell them what the 5 regrets of the dead are?
Yeah, so the 5 regrets of the dead are not living a life true to yourself, not having to work so hard, not having the courage to express my feelings, not staying in touch with my friends and family, and not allowing myself to be happier. And I think this goes against a lot of the things that, not things that we want to live by, because these are good things to live by, obviously, but it does go against what a lot of people do. So it's just doing what they want to do versus what they actually end up doing.
Exactly. Right. It's cool. So we'll marinate on those for a minute. Before we kind of dive into those, and I do have a question for you once we start diving into those, but I think we should kind of outline, it may seem foolish, but like outline like what regret is or what regret means to us or standardly means. So when I think of regret in its simplest form, I think of something that was desired to be done or something somebody wanted to do or obtain, etc., and just never pursued doing it. So I guess having a desire and then the lack of pursuing that desire would create the emotion regret. I don't know if you have anything to add or caveat off that.
The 5 regrets of the dead, where it came from, is from a book, and then the author basically interviewed people literally about to die. It's like, hey, what was your regrets throughout life? And these 5 were the most common. And that's the scary part out of them all, because regret is something that you cannot redo unless you have more time. And even if you have more time, you didn't do it when you wanted to. So you can never take it back.
So again, I think most people know what regret is, but we just kind of want to put it in context. I think that's a great point. All right, so of the 5 you named, what do you think on this list? Obviously, we're not dead and hopefully far from it. But again, these are great talking points and a lot still apply. What do you think is the one you struggle with the most now? Not saying maybe you fully regret, but like reading this list, which one kind of jumped out to you and you're like, oh, like I can relate to that the most, or like this is one for me personally I really kind of want to focus on, because I know reading them, one jumped out to me that I'll share after, but I wanted to pose the question to you as to which one kind of really hit you when you read this list.
Okay, so growing up throughout my life, the majority regret that I see myself having is number 1, the not living a life true to yourself.
Okay.
But as I get older, I started to figure out that a little bit better. So now, currently, I struggle with not having to work so hard.
Can you elaborate on not the first one you said, not living a life true to yourself? How, in what ways do you feel like you weren't living a life true to yourself?
Just as my background story, my mom is Japanese and my father is white, Caucasian.
Okay.
So I'm mixed. Now looking at myself, I love being Japanese and I love being white. I love both part of myself. But growing up, until I was in middle school, I lived in Japan. And I went to school where my mom's from, which is a very rural part in Japan. Okay. So I was literally the only foreigner at that school.
Yeah.
And with my name being fully, I guess not, you could say English or American or just not Japanese, I got made fun of a lot from my early years. So I never got to express like how I wanted to live. I was always conservative in my, my thoughts and my actions. And flip side, when I went to middle school, I ended up going to middle school in Rochester, New York. And middle school for a minority, at least it was a tough time for me. Like I got made fun of so much just for being Japanese or Asian. I never understood why. So I'm like, oh man, like I can't get accepted in Japan. I can't get accepted in America.
Yeah, that must have been hard.
And it wasn't really until high school where I was like, it was okay to be who I was. But even then, I mean, I'm sure everyone's, you know the high school vibe.
Yeah, high school's a tough time. That's like
Yeah, high school, like,
ruthless.
and even in college, like I went to a very white populated school. I think it was like 95% white, which is fine, but they just weren't used to, non-white people just hanging out with each other, I guess.
Right.
So I got made fun of a little bit, definitely teased in college as well. And there was a lot of restrictions that I put on myself because of that. And now that I'm a fully ingrained adult in society, I guess, and I live in Phoenix now where it's very diverse. So no issues then. And since then, I definitely gained some confidence and I know who I am and I really appreciate the cultures that I got to experience growing up. But that's some of the things that really stuck out to me in my early years in my life.
That's very cool. I can't help but I can't not just speak on the diversity piece that was kind of woven throughout what you just said. And I know personally in my life, I think diversity is so important. And then to the aspect of living the life true to yourself, somebody navigating diverse experiences and then that almost becoming a part of who you are and now becoming a part of the story of one living the life that's true to them. Like, so two caveats to that, or two additions to kind of what you just said. My high school was predominantly white, but beyond that, it was placed in the Jewish community. So I had the opportunity to go to school with a bunch of Jewish individuals, which was cool. Like learned a lot about, I guess, the Jewish culture as well, and have like very good friends to this day that are Jewish. And so like that just experience also becomes a part of who I am, and then I can draw from that or leverage that. And then on a more personal note between us, like we lived in Japan together for 3 years, not like literally under the same roof, but like right up the street from each other, and saw each other often, probably like upwards of 5 times a week. And just navigating a new country for me and like being able to dive into your culture and kind of almost being like guided through your culture from you and having you as insight. Now I still talk about Japan frequently. Literally this weekend I went and had like dinner with a buddy, and he also actually lived in Japan for a little bit, and that was a huge part of our conversation and just how that experience shaped us. And then now we can, that story and that experience, 3 years is pretty significant. That's a part of me, and that will go towards like living a part of like who I am or living my true story or my authentic self. So having those diverse experiences, again, at a young age, for you, almost bringing the diversity to the kids around you, again, with underdeveloped minds, people don't accept it, unfortunately, as much as they should. But I mean, to some extent, that's kids being kids. But I just say all that to say, I think diversity is huge, and especially in growing someone's story and allowing them to live in their truth. Sometimes it's hard to accept things that are outside the norm of your own race or culture, because people try to keep things within maybe their race or culture. I don't want to deviate too much, but I just wanted to highlight the diversity and kind of what you said and the importance of it. So thank you for sharing that. That was pretty personal. For me, I would say the biggest thing that jumped out to me, or even that I might struggle with, is I would say not having the courage to express my feelings. And for a lot of people that know me pretty well, I'm not super opinionated, but I'm very much, I think one of my strengths are listening. But on that same note, I very much defer to other people's, like, just like I'm okay. Like I'll be the background guy, or often like not give my opinions. And sometimes it doesn't matter, but even sometimes it might matter. And I think I keep my mouth shut more than I would like to. I would definitely trying to foster the ability to be able to like really speak up when I think I have something of value to say, or just to bring to the table, or insert myself in a conversation, like whatever it may be, and which is interesting because I don't consider myself a shy person, and I think I might be getting slightly better about it. But I know over the last couple of years, where like a conversation would end or someone would pass, and I was like, man, I really should have, like, dang, I should have spoke up, or like I had one little thing to say, but like it's not gonna change the outcome, or like, you know, for whatever reason I bite my tongue. And that's really kind of sat with me and stuck with me to the point where I'm just trying to develop the ability to candidly speak my opinion. Now, I have noticed in my current position at work, I'm working in a role that's typically a higher ranking person. So usually when I say things, it's on the behalf of a person that would be more higher ranking than I. So it's like my word would hold more weight just because of the role that I'm in, even though it's not like the role I'm supposed to be in. So at work, I think I'm a little bit better at kind of like speaking up on behalf of me or my office that I represent. And in my personal life with my close friends, I don't think it's so much of an issue. But just generally speaking, as I like navigate the world, I think the one that hits me the most is not having the courage to express my feelings. And I'm a very expressive person as far as like creativity goes, which is, I mean, not me talking to anybody, it just manifests in like art or, you know, poetry or whatever. No problem there. But in interacting with people, I think sometimes for whatever reason, bite my tongue. It's just something about myself I'm trying to figure out and kind of just do it more.
I've known you for, coming up on 6 years, and I never thought that. That was the first time hearing it. So it's very interesting to hear.
It is very much an inner thought that, funny you say that, like a lot, like you might not realize, because I don't, and like I said, maybe not less with my closer friends, which is obviously you, but even then sometimes, and again, you would never really notice it, but again, just from the inner thoughts, I'm like, man, I should have just like maybe like opened up a little more, or like, I should have just said it, or, you know, so yeah, I would say that's one thing that I consciously think of and that I'm trying to work on.
It's that one thing where, like 2 days from an argument that I guess that went by or you lost or whatever, like if I said this line, that argument would have been over. I would have just destroyed the other person.
Right. Yeah, man, a lot of thoughts roaming around in my head. But
do you want to go through from the 1 to 5 that we listed? But these are coming from people that are in their deathbeds. Right. That went through much longer period of life.
Oh, absolutely.
And then these are the five things that they listed. Let's talk about why people that are, 70s, 80s, 90s have regrets of these 5 things that they listed, and why we think they have listed it, and what we can do to hopefully not prevent it, but better have less of a regret in that aspect.
So we'll start with not living a life true to yourself. So you want to kind of talk about why we think people haven't lived lives true to themselves?
Yeah, what does that even mean, first of all?
So, I mean, obviously you touched on it, which I think kind of laid a good foundation of what to think about not living a life true to yourself. But when I think of not living a life true to yourself, it's like, all right, first off, to start, I think this one starts with defining who you are. Like, if you don't know, and I mean, this was such an interesting one because, I don't know, do you ever 100% like know who you are? Like, I don't know. I guess the verdict's out on that one. I would argue no, but as humans innately are, I think we have the capacity to continue to develop and continue to grow. And with that, things change. And with that, who we are, we could argue, like, is always changing. It's kind of fluid, maybe like a spectrum. But yeah, at the foundation of that, you got to know who you are to live a life true to that. So I think the start is just living a life conducive to putting yourself in positions to learn, like, and I could be off on this, to learn, like, who you are. Like, to me, if you do, I don't want to offend anybody, but if you do the same thing your entire life, like, grow up in the same village or city, do this. I don't know. The first thing that comes to my head is a farmer. So I don't know. Like, work the farm your whole life. Don't really travel much. And then again, maybe that is true. I mean, that's your identity. Maybe that's who you are. But back to the diversity piece. Diversity in experience and thought, and you having the ability to kind of wrestle with opposing like sides and thought will kind of maybe foster a more developed version of yourself or more intricate version of yourself to truly learn who you are. Because like within the last years, I mean, some conversations that we have often or all, like off camera and stuff, it really kind of reflect after, and you're like, what do I really believe? Like, where do I like? You always say like, oh yeah, I think this, but when you really dive into it, it's like, where do I really stand on this? Where do I really believe? And I think your beliefs make up like who you are. Well, I say your beliefs in like the summation of your memories, like what you've lived. So your beliefs and maybe your experiences. So I first think you have to develop who you are, and then you have to, in developing who you are, you have to recognize who you are, and then, I mean, simultaneous to that, you have to live in accordance with that, who you are. So I don't know if you have anything to add before we continue, but like when I think of living a life true to yourself, I think it's before you can just say like, yeah, I do or I don't. You have to define who you are. Like, what are you living a life true to? You know?
Right. The one thing I would add is maybe not add, but it could be it could be something that you meant. I'm sure it's going to be something similar. But living by the purpose of your life. And then the purpose is
Preach.
What we usually talk about during our phone calls. It's like I know what I want to do, but I don't know why I want to do it. And that's something that it's not that I'm continuously, I'm obviously looking for it. That's not my sole, that doesn't fill my time up 24/7 to find what my purpose is. But I would like to eventually find that purpose of why I'm trying to do everything. And I think that'll give me better clarity to keep pushing and being more motivated and living a life more true to myself. And it's kind of cool hanging out with some, I go to a lot of real estate meetups and I talk to a lot of real estate buddies. And one guy I know, a lot of people invest in real estate for the money or just passing wealth down to your kids, something financial, right? Which this guy's case is tied to that. But his purpose is he's a full-time missionary, right? So his purpose for real estate, his purpose for his life is to, continue to educate Christianity to as many people as possible. And then for him to do that, he has to take donations from the church and to, live the life that he needs to live to feed his kids, pay his mortgage, just live life. But his purpose for real estate is so that he can generate enough cash flow to sustain his lifestyle. So he doesn't have to take donations from church and he can do full-time mission work with no interruptions.
Yes.
And hearing that, I'm like, that's first of all, that's very noble of him.
It is, extremely.
And when you have that purpose, I think everything you do is very clear. Now, I don't want to say black and white, but it's much more clear to say, hey, does this align with my purpose or does this not align with my purpose?
Yes.
And no one's going to be perfect. No one's going to do 100% of the things that's going to align with their purpose, but it would definitely help.
And it's funny, like you said, purpose. You know me, I'm always talking about like the why, which is synonymous with your purpose. Like, and what you said, and it's not something you go to sleep and wake up and you're like, that's it. It's developed over time. So I think living a life true to yourself, if I could summarize a lot of what we said, it's just like your clarity of purpose, because you mentioned being clear and you mentioned purpose. And I think clarity of purpose is just a great kind of catch-all little saying for what will allow you to live a life true to yourself. Like if you know your clarity of purpose, everything you do will kind of align with that and propel you forward, essentially. So I think that's really cool. So in thinking of why people don't live a life true to themselves, or, like how we could live a life true to ourselves, I think first off, like, find why we do what we do, or like, what are we really doing it for, which is exactly what you said. Like, you kind of know what you want to do and kind of what's making you happy, but really trying to find the why behind that. And me too, man. Like, and this is, I don't want to minimize it to just a job. I think it's way deeper than that, but I'll probably be transitioning careers in the near future, being like less than 5 years. And the go-to question is like, oh, what do you want to do? And I'm just like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, like, jokingly. So just trying to find clarity and like internalize. And we talked about it on our last podcast, like, everybody's not going to get their dream job, which I don't even necessarily expect to. Definitely going to shoot for the stars, but it's not the end of the world. But I do want to do something that aligns with what fulfills me and, like, obviously, like, what I'm good at and what makes me happy, which goes back to, like, kind of who I am, living a life in accordance with, like, true to myself. Like, I want my job to align with what's true to me. So always just wrestling, like, okay, what does Julian really stand for? Like, what really fulfills Julian? So I think that's interesting. So I'll say the first part for us pursuing that is, again, same as you really do. Like, what's my why? Like, what's my big driving, motivating factor? And I'll just go out there and say one thing for me. I don't have any kids or I'm not married, but I know for a fact, like, in my heart, like, one thing I'm very clear on, like, I have an extreme amount of clarity on, is that I want a family and to include kids. Like, and I think, as I'm pursuing that too, and I align things with that vision, it'll make some decisions easier. Like, nope, I'm not gonna do that because that doesn't align with that, Or yeah, I could really see myself doing that because that aligns with. It's just one part of it, but that aligns with trying to start a family or have kids or whatever. So, I think that's one way we can move towards trying to live a life true to ourselves, is again getting our clarity and our purpose.
What's preventing that for most people?
What is preventing? One thing I think that's, like, super relevant is, I'll start, like, from a macro level, big picture. I'll just say society's image or like public opinion, maybe.
Fear.
Which boils down to fear. Fear of not meeting what's popular, what society says we're supposed to have or supposed to look like or who we're supposed to be, and, like, fear of the public opinion. Yeah.
That's good. My personal story, to go off of that, is me, myself, living true to myself. I'm not a drinker. I'm not a heavy drinker. I always drank, but I didn't like drinking.
Yes.
And just going to college, joining a fraternity, going into the Navy, those are all synonymous activities for drinking. And even after getting out and just hanging out with my buddies, all my buddies are single, I'm married.
Yeah.
But going to the clubs, going to the bars,
yeah,
you drink.
Yeah.
And 2024, I set a goal to myself that I'm not drinking a drop of alcohol. And just by setting that goal, it made me free up. It just my mental so much easier to deal with, because that's not an option anymore for me to consider. Nice. Like, hey, my buddies want to drink. I don't want to drink, but I'll just drink so that I can have a good time with my buddies.
Right.
But now I don't need to drink. I can just still hang out.
Yeah.
And then, thank God, my buddies are supportive of that. But that's just something that's really helped me. Just one small thing that try to live a life true to myself.
Dude, I think that's awesome. I also think you're, like, a naturally funny or naturally goofy and fun dude. So, like, some people drink to kind of, like, loosen up. I definitely don't think you need it for that reason. So So that's awesome. And I think there's something to be said, kind of what you to the point you were like, and luckily, your friends like support that. That kind of speaks volumes because that also it's like they're helping you promote like again living a life true to yourself. If they weren't, I think you can make the argument like, all right, are these really my boys? Are these really my friends? Because in pursuit of living a life true to ourselves, you want to surround yourself with people that will help you live a life true to yourself. So that's like a little mini topic within that. I think that's very good, which is one reason I find so much, I don't even want to say value, but like it is value for sure, but appreciation. I don't know what word in our friendship though, because we can just kind of do so many things, talk about so many things, and it really it's grounding and allows me to again kind of sync up with my like true self. So shout out to you on that note. So yeah, I think. Do you have anything else on why you think people don't get a chance to live a life true to yourself, or if not, we can keep it moving? I think we kind of hit on that one pretty good.
Yeah, I do. I want to talk about fear, but I think we can definitely cover that in the later
Okay.
bullets of the regrets, because I think fear is gonna be a big factor in a lot of the regret topic in general.
Kind of going to the next one. It is regretting pretty much working so hard throughout your life. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't know what do you think? I mean, again, from what you've like observed with people, or how the normal framework of you're born, you go to school, you work, you retire, then you move on to the next phase of wherever your soul goes. What do you think about that, the traditional framework, or have you seen people working too hard, or it's even different in different cultures? Like, what are your thoughts on people just living to work?
So I think they talk about when they talk about work, is their W-2 or 1099, whatever their day job. I think that's what they're referring to, because if you just said work in general, it'll kind of contradict the first bullet that we talked about, not living a life true to yourself, because if you have a purpose and you know what you want to do, it's going to take work for you to get there. So I don't think that's a bad way to spend your time working towards a goal that you have. Vice, that day job that doesn't align with your purpose in life. And I would think 99% of our society, their day job doesn't align with their life's mission. Right?
Right.
Or at least I think so.
I think so, for the majority.
Because I do like my job. And my job is a means to provide capital for the purpose that I want to live. But the job itself is not the end.
Okay.
So with that being said, some people, it could be fame, it could be greed, it could just be trying to feel productive. I'm not sure. The reason could differ from person to person.
Yes.
But especially in America and a lot of different cultures, you're expected to, if you're not working this many hours, or if you don't work on the weekend or whatever, it kind of has that toxic environment. It's like, oh, you should be doing more. While, spending time at your workplace doesn't mean productivity, right? A 3-year-old baby doing the same job as me might take 10 hours to complete one task where I could get it done in 3 minutes. That has the same exact productivity, but because of the societal image or the company culture, kind of what you talked about in the beginning, it's kind of dictating your life on trying to work so many hours, and that literally translates to not many things that you're going to be proud of at the end of your life. Because they always say you're trying to work hard for your family, right? And that's great. But your kids, they're gonna they're not going to care that you worked 80-hour weeks. They're going to care about, and they're going to have the memory of you spending time with them. And that's something that I imagine you would realize towards the end of your life, and you can't really take that back, because once your kids are grown up, they're grown. Yeah, it's just a different relationship you have with them. Yeah, I would assume
the impression is made when they're young. Yeah,
right. At least I have a different relationship with my parents now than when I was 8 or 10.
Right. In a perfect world, if your W-2 job, your profession, career actually aligns like very well, or is your dream job, but with who you are or trying to become, then again that's hats off to you. It's like you kind of made it in that sense. Like that's what we all wish for. But again, like you said, the overwhelming majority, that's not the case. And so sure, there's parallels, or there's probably strands of the jobs that we do that's like, okay, this brings out this part of me that I really like, which again is good, but it maybe not fully directly aligns with who you are and the life you're trying to live, which is okay, because like you said, it's for a lot of people a means to ends, or we don't know the reasons people do it. So yeah, I largely agree with everything you said. So now I guess looking at us and how do we create this life for ourselves where it's not just either. That's another thing I was gonna say. I feel like traditionally people would like work to survive almost. I can't remember. I've seen the statistic before, but I can't remember what population of America, but like literally will live like check to check, or it's the circumstances just that they're quite literally making this money, like there's no, like solely, like doesn't matter their job, but like solely to get by, to provide for their family, keep a roof over their head. I don't think anybody wants that situation. It's the reality for a lot of people, but and then kind of like you said, and you brought up toxic, it's maybe like a toxicity within a America mindset, but like you have to work so much, and you have to do these things, and it's very linear on like how you get a job, and you work for this many years, and you work for so long, and then you don't. We're now, and it kind of goes to some things we said last week too, or another episode. There's different ways to do things now. So I personally am trying to transition, like for my life, from the work to survive mindset to like work to thrive mindset. And by that, I mean, I want to work to, again, fulfill myself for enjoyment, hopefully, to be a productive member of society and like help lives, but also to allow myself to do other things within my life, other ways, maybe get some initial capital so I can build out, like we've mentioned real estate a couple of times, to help in real estate endeavors, and build out. So I have a very fruitful and productive life, but also more comfortable. And I'm not on that traditional path of just, I'm literally working to survive. I'm working because they say that's what you have to do. Working all these obscure hours. No, I want to work so I can become a thriving member, like so I can better myself, be better than those that came before me, and provide a product, tying it back to the familial piece for my kids, a better product, so then they can hopefully become better than I am. But at least, maybe I'm like setting the bar higher. I don't know. But yeah, I'm, for myself, and this may take like more sacrifice on the front end, but like trying to work to thrive, vice working to survive.
You need a little bit of sacrifice. We talk about not having to work so hard, but I think they talk about it their entirety of their life. But it's okay to sacrifice 5 years of your life just grinding and grinding and grinding, so for the next 50 years, you can have a better life. And I think a lot of people miss out on that, especially not our generation, but the generation below seems like it. A lot of people have the mindset of, hey, you're going to be working for the rest of your life, so might as well enjoy it now. Sure, that's fine if you can do that comfortably within your financial budget.
Yeah.
But people are going into credit card debt just so that they can have flashy vacations, and
man,
that's not it. That's not how you should want to live your life.
I agree. And the ratio might not always be like you said, 5 to 50. Like if you sacrifice these 5 years, you'll have 50 years of, it may not always be that, but basically what you're saying is sacrifice some now or on the front end or while you're younger to set up the majority of your later life. It would be the way to go. It's hard to see in the moment. Again, when you're young, they say these are your best years, or you're in your prime. Of course, who doesn't want to go out? Who doesn't want to have fun? Who doesn't want to enjoy things? But I think we would argue if you wanted to maximize your quality of life and enjoyment, which would probably be like the middle of your life to like the latter part of your life. Yeah, it's the foundation you build. You build the foundation now. And I'm glad you put it in context, right? These are mostly from people that are elderly, so they're talking about like working so hard over the entirety of their life. When I think we're saying there's ways around that.
What are the ways around that? Do you have any idea to prevent ourselves from?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I'm no expert on this or anything. I mean, I think we already said it. It's just sacrificing now. So, like, right, like I went to the Naval Academy. So, for those that don't know, it's basically like a military school where their partying pretty much doesn't exist. A lot of what I'm not gonna say is like advertised by normal colleges, but benefits seen by younger people of normal colleges don't exist at the Naval Academy. But I made that conscious decision. In fact, I remember my dad verbatim telling me, he was like, all right, I mean, hey, Julian, you can either sacrifice now and suck it up for these 4 years and not have the fun or the lavish college lifestyle that a lot of people are having, and kind of prepare yourself more post-graduation. It's like, or you can go to one of these other schools and, you'll probably do fine and have a more free, like, fun life. He was like, I recommend you go to the Naval Academy because, it'll set you up and do this. And I was like, and my parents had definitely like a big influence on me. So I was like, you know what, like I'm right. There's a lot of good opportunities in this. So I did that. And that was a sacrifice for my collegiate years to better myself post-graduation. And then now, I mean, so you said, like, what are some things we can do? I think become just more knowledgeable on things we're working towards. I know you and I have talked about like graduate degrees maybe, or just, it doesn't even have to be like a formal education like that. Like reading, finding creative ways to make income or have alternate revenue streams, I think are some ways. Just networking. Like I think these are all like minor ways that you can maybe like alter or little things to like add to your life that can help you maybe bring you more income or just make you more well-rounded, and that you won't have to work the traditional like long hours all your life and just like wear you down.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that I'm having, but it's just interesting to think about. You look at different cultures, and American culture is definitely unique because you're expected to work a lot. I mean, at least for most jobs.
Yeah.
If they say, hey, we're short on people on this day or this project, hey, I expect you to come in, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't, because that falls outside of your working hours and your compensation plan or whatnot, it's kind of frowned upon to do that.
No, it definitely is.
And you, after work, you just kind of go home, go to the gym, whatever, hang out, do your own thing. And you look at European culture, and then I know there's some break in the middle of the day, right?
Yeah, I know. So like I lived in Spain specifically. This is something I can speak on for almost a year, and they have what's called siesta, and it's a literal implicit within the culture, like a break in the middle of the day where like some stores will shut down, like you leave work, it's like nap time for like, I don't know, 2 hours, and then people come like back to work or whatever. Yeah, to just help culture or quality of life. Yeah.
Imagine having that here, which would be insane. Which will be insane. It will never work because we want everything now. And imagine something shut down for, God forbid, 2 hours. It's going to be a national chaos.
Right.
And going into at least what I'm familiar with, the East Asian culture.
I'm glad you brought this
up. I'm just thinking of Japan, and Japanese people, there's a high number of suicide rates because they're expected to work so hard. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, people take naps at work. because that's a sign of working so hard,
Yeah.
right? I might get fired if I do that at my job.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference I noticed is that after work, there's a lot of activities that you go do with your work buddies. Like drinking after work, not because of drinking is not the important part. Just hanging out with your colleagues after work is a big part of Asian culture,
Yeah.
and that never happens here.
Yeah, I think it's less accepted here. You can, like, nothing prevents you, but it's just people don't want to as much, I don't think.
I'm just thinking, I go to my work buddies like, hey, you want to go get food after? They'd be like, no. Right?
I think I'm good.
They'd rather go home and do their own thing, which is understandable. But it's just interesting to point out these different cultural expectations or the norm. And that you can't get away from working in America if you're American and you have a good job here. You can't just in most cases, you can't just pack your bag and just go to another country just because they have a better work-life balance, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that ties in a lot to being expected to work so hard, or in quotation, work so hard. Just the image piece of it.
I want to anchor on the East Asia or like the Japan thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not like retirement not a thing out there.
I mean, there is retirement for sure.
Okay.
But a lot of people, it's more generally culturally accepted to just work
To just,
much, much, much longer.
which is kind of what we said. Yeah.
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 Which is definitely something else. Yeah.
Because I know from living out there, again, I would see, just like elderly people working. And I'm talking about like manual labor at ages that in America you are not seeing people of the same age do these type of tasks. And I had a mixed emotions just as a third party viewing it. I was like, man, this is like honorable, but at the same time, like, man, like, why are they doing this? Like, is it out of necessity? And it was kind of just interesting to observe how, like, it everywhere, like, not all, but like most of the elderly people I saw were still doing like labor or back-breaking like manual labor. And also Japanese people also live longer, so that might be a whole nother conversation of like things to go into. But I would just always remember, like, why are they working not only so late in their life but also so hard? It was just,
we'll never understand that.
yeah. And I mean, just to like close this point, I mean, I guess it's like a cultural thing, right? Like, that's probably what is was promoted to do, which I think is kind of unfortunate. All right, so next, not having the courage to express your feelings. Again, I kind of talked on this one, so I'll open up with this one. I think, so when we look at like why people don't have the courage to express their feelings, which is crazy because what I'm about to say is not what I experienced at all. It's not the environment I grew up in. But I think a lot of people don't have the courage to express their feelings due to environment. And what I mean by that is maybe you're in a household where it's not promoted for you to like express yourself, to say what you think, say what your opinion is. It's like, hey, look, you're going to do this because I said so, or like I'm the parent, or whoever your guardian is, like I'm the grandparent, I'm the babysitter, whatever. Like, no, you're not going to do that. And it's hard for maybe at a younger age to like express yourself. And then you take that a little bit further, like, again, kids are mean, kind of like what you've experienced when you were young. Like, at school, you're trying to, people are learning themselves. People are trying to express what they like, and people are getting made fun of. People are getting bullied. People are getting put down. It doesn't feel good. What kid is going to continually go against that when their environment is showing, like, hey, this isn't cool, or this isn't accepted, or this isn't wanted? Like, no. And then as an adult, I think it's less of like direct bullying and things of that nature, and more so what is publicly promoted, i.e. IG, Instagram, Facebook. Like, what are we seeing? Like, oh, this is what we should be thinking. Oh, this is how we should be acting. And it's probably subconscious, but like you digesting all of that that's just out there on the internet, in the ether, is like, even me, like you can feel that. You're like, hey, maybe should I try this? And am I doing too much here? Or, you know what I mean? It can have an effect on you. So I think for why people don't have that courage to express themselves at various levels, I think like those are some examples, but I can summarize that in just like the environment, like the environmental pressures or the impact that it has on you to just your thought.
Fear of rejection.
Oh man, big time, big time. Hey, who doesn't want to be accepted, right?
Right. And it makes sense from just as humans, back in the day when all the DNAs and brain and whatever, all this stuff was being formed as Homo sapiens. If you got rejected from your tribe or your little hunting group, that probably meant that you're going to die. You're going to get left behind and you're not going to be able to feed yourself and you're going to ultimately die off. It makes sense as humans that we want to be generally accepted. And now we got to the point in society where you can have different opinions and nothing's going to happen to you. You can say pretty much whatever you want and be okay with it. It might take another 100,000 years before our DNA gets rewired to, be able to say whatever and understand that they'll be okay. But yeah, it's a hard mental thing to overcome, I think, to go against the norm. I'm sure a lot of people have thoughts in their head, but to verbally express that's going to be a whole different story, because God forbid you say one wrong thing and you get canceled online, which, I mean, it's part of it. I get it.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of flip the narrative. Do you think there is ever a time or space where you should be conscious or aware of how to express yourself? Like, oh, I'm entering this space, like I should be conscious, or it would be good or advantageous to, I don't want to say act a certain way, but contain certain thoughts, or
Yes.
yes? Okay.
In negotiation settings, I think that those are very beneficial to not blur everything that you're thinking. Like if you're trying to do a really big transaction in business, or at least for me, real estate side of it.
Yeah.
If you're talking to a seller and he has a big, I don't know, bald spot on his head, I'm just like, yo, what is that thing? Like, I'm not going to say that, right? Even if I'm just kind of curious, I'm just like looking at it. And even so, I'm like, oh shit, I should not be looking at this.
This is a wild example.
But yeah, a lot of negotiation settings, a lot of political settings, which there's a lot of negotiation in politics. But I guess I think you can narrow it down to professional versus non-professional settings.
Okay, that's I think I would agree with that. Go
But
ahead.
even in some professional settings, you should express some stuff. Because if you don't express some stuff, then one party's going to just take over your entire feelings and your thought. And it just kind of makes the event that you're at kind of pointless, because you're just kind of there. You're just like basically a robot, right? If you don't say anything. So it is a hard line to, it's just like the ability to read the room, which a lot of people said I struggle at. But it's fine. I'm gonna say what I think for the most part, but I'm not gonna try to be rude about it. But some things need to be said. Some things need to be said.
I like the way you articulated a lot of that. So towards the end, what I heard was like value and diversity of thought. Like if you never speak up, or if multiple people have the mindset not to speak up, it's just going to be the same opinion circulating. But you said there's that line, which before you said that, I was going to ask you, because you were like, yeah, sometimes you need to speak up. But like, if I'm somebody hearing that, like what sometimes, like, how do I know when to say things certain times and when not to say things? So it's funny you said that line, and kind of, I don't know if there's an answer. You just have to live life for a while and kind of figure it out. I mean, I know nobody wants to hear that, but it's like, what is the line? And to kind of bring the point back around, what made me even ask you that question is, I was thinking, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed it's very evident that like older people, their filter like erodes over time. Like older people say what they want to say. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I think that's just because they care less and less what others think, because they're more aware of who they are.
I have two things. Okay, I think for two reasons. One is that I think they care less what people think, which I think there's something to be said about that. Like, sometimes I wish I cared less what people think. And then also, I think they have less to lose. They're oftentimes not working jobs. They're not, like, their friends are their friends. Like, they're not making new friends at, most of the times they're like 80, like, who's in their life is in their life. Their job is their job, or they don't have a job, you know what I mean? Like, there's just not as much to lose. When you're younger, you, I think, care way more what people think, and you have stuff to lose. So, like, and in some cases, you almost have to care what people think. At that age, you almost don't have to care what people think, which is why I was going to bring it full circle. Like, to your point, I would answer my question, yes. When do you think sometimes you have to, I don't want to say withhold certain thoughts, but maybe be strategic about delivering them, or, however you say what you want to say? It's that's why I just think it's so interesting, and what I struggle with, because I personally want to care less about what people think. Like, and some people all throughout my life have told me, like, hey, Julian, you're too nice, man. Like, you're too nice. And it's like, I'm trying. Like, it's hard to, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to be a-hole. Like, I don't know. It's legit though. Like, I agree. Like, I am too nice sometimes. But yeah, it's a full circle moment. I'm like, well, people in their, like, I don't know, 60s, 70s, 80s, and I can see it in my parents sometimes, like, slowly, like, they just don't care anymore. And it's like, it's almost admirable though. It's like, dang, like, that's what's up. This lady or these people that work with these elderly people and found these 5 things, like, they still express that one of the regrets is not having the courage to express their feelings. So I think, again, like you said, they do it maybe at the end of their life, but, like, I think you said before, early on, or they wish they would have done it earlier. So hearing that, again, for me personally, hearing that, it's like, all right, that's something to really internalize and really kind of believe in myself and express these things in these environments where I think I need to. Because, again, I'm not, if it is something touchy, or maybe that the group doesn't, it's not the popular opinion, I know I'm not going to be like, no, hey, this is what I think we need to do, or like, that's just not me. So I think I can express it in a respectful way. So I got a good story for this next one. Not staying in touch with friends and family. I have 2. One's a story, one's kind of just like a little saying. Just something to state on this topic. But before I go, do you have anything you think why people don't do this, or any, like, testaments of your own life?
I don't know why I don't do this more. I was thinking about it. I don't have a reason. I should be reaching out to more people. It's not fear of rejection. It's not fear-based at all. I'm just thinking about it. Maybe it's laziness. Because I could be reaching out to probably 100 people right now and have a good conversation that I don't do. And if I did that, that's going to take up a lot of my time. But I should still be doing that for some people.
Yeah.
And your life, your memory of your life is just collections of your experiences.
Yep.
And your relationships, looking back on it. It's sad because I know that I don't do this as well. And then people literally in their deathbed is saying that I regret it because I didn't do this. So that kind of makes me think maybe I should be reaching out to, I don't have to talk to them every day. I could talk to them once a month. Like, hey, like, how's it going? And especially family too, especially family.
You know this, but for the more general masses, like, I don't usually set, like, New Year's resolutions, but I did do a vision board this year with my girlfriend. And one of the things on it was literally it was mostly family, but kind of to pour into more relationships that I have, with the emphasis on family. And so yeah, like, that's one thing I've identified, because exactly what you said about how life, I think, is the collection of, like, experiences, memories, and relationships. So why not pour into those things now? So again, the two quick things I was referencing is, one, like me and you. So I went overseas, or I was in Spain, right? We didn't really talk much over there, but came back, and at some point, like we caught up, and I think we both value our friendship. I think it was you that was said, like, dude, like, why don't we just talk, like, once a week? And I'm like, yeah, why don't we talk once a week? And I don't think we ever put a time limit on it, but I also don't think we've ever talked under an hour, which is, like, kind of crazy to think about. I don't think we've ever, one conversation had under an hour. to the point where my girlfriend now knows, like, all right, hey, Wednesday, Thursdays, like, hey, Julian's gonna talk to B probably around these hours. Like, I already know what's up. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, that's the time, and I love it, dude. It's just it's a relief. It's so many things, but to that point, I can be maybe not the same thing, but adapting similar methods with. I have so many like really close cousins and just people I really care about and even think about. But like you said, I'm just not reaching out, and it's like, why? Why are you not? It's got to be laziness because I don't have any tangible reason to not. Like, I know it is a time thing. Like, for me personally, dude, I'm one of the people that, like, I'll let a text sit if I get a text. If I'm, like, I don't have at least, like, 20 or 30 minutes to, like, actually go back and forth for conversation, I don't want to just be like, hey, like, how you been? Oh, I've been good. Like, all right, I've been good, too. Like, all right, catch you next time. Like, to me, if I think it's going to be that, I just don't respond. Like, I want to talk to you, but I want it to be of substance. And I think that just prevents a lot of me checking in with people or.
Did you have AIM in middle school?
Dude, I didn't. I never, I missed the AIM.
Oh, really?
I knew it. I never had AIM, though.
Like the middle school talk. I don't know. I don't know if it still happens today in middle school, but, you're trying to talk to a girl. It's just like, hey.
Yeah. Hey.
The next line is, hey. And the next line is, what's up?
What's up?
Nothing much, you. That's such a low level conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny, I think. Yeah.
Developing. Yeah.
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So both of our reasons for not talking to more people or friends and family than we like to think was because laziness. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I want to bring up and I just thought about is, I don't want to say heavily, but we definitely value the personal development side of books, podcasts,
100%.
Any sort of content, right? And they tell you to cut out friends that are not, they're not providing value to you. They're bringing you down. They're not lifting you up. That kind of goes against this bullet of not staying in touch with my friends and family, because I would say some family definitely bring value to you, especially just keep maintaining a relationship because you are personally vested in their growth and the relationship you have with them. But at the same time, I would say most of my I can't think of one family member that are helping me with business, right? Maybe not directly. Maybe they could be indirectly. They could be motivating me, but most of the time it's just like when I first got into stocks after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad at 22, my parents were like, dude, like, don't invest in the stock market. It's risky. They're actually bringing me down.
Yeah.
And that is a weird balance I don't have a conclusion on that. People who are dying said, hey, I want to maintain good relationships, but at the same time, on the business side, they're like, yo, cut out any relationships that are not helping you. And I think both are valid points.
Oof, I have so many thoughts on that. Do you think, like, right, so they said on the business side not helping you, but, like, do you think a relationship could help you and not business related, right? Like, maybe they're just pouring into another aspect of your life.
Yeah, it could definitely help just in your mental relief, like almost therapy. I know just talking to you on a weekly basis is just nice to just talk about stuff without a filter on. Like we said, we can say, dude, like, this is so dumb, or like, this is all the things that was going good. And, I can't share most of my success stories in my life because a lot of people will look at me as, oh, I'm bragging, or, they have negative thoughts after sharing it. Whereas I just want to have someone to share my wins with.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know I've also heard the things like, right, if they're not value added, do you really need them? That might be more specifically for, like, I don't know, like, once you really, like, your name really starts generating some, people really start to get to know who you are, and, like, maybe, like, large masses of people are trying to contact you, and now you're like, all right, I got to really sift out, like, who's who. I mean, I don't know about you, but me, it's not people, like, blowing me up for like wealth tidbits or, like, recommendations. So it's pretty hard to, like, identify who's in my life and why, and, like, who I want to keep there. But I mean, again, as we progress, that I think that's still, I'm not saying that's not important to know who to keep and why. I think it's still good to, like, think about that. Or even that might dictate how much you talk to them. If somebody's like, you're the one always reaching out to them, I think there's reciprocation too. Like they'd never reach out to you. I mean, some people are busy. That could say something, but maybe that's one person you just talk to once a year, like not that often. But you still want to be a part of their life. You want them in your life, so you try. It's just more minimal.
They could want to talk to you, but because it's not the norm to just randomly hit up people that we haven't talked to in 3 years, they just might not do it. And you got to step out of your comfort zone to be like, hey, like, what's up, man? Like, let's just talk. And I hate texting too. Text is the lowest form of communication. I rather use text and be like, hey, when are you free? Let's grab food if you're local, or let's just hop on a phone call and just you can do dishes, you can be doing whatever. I just want to have a voice conversation.
The last story I want to make, just to drive this point home, and this really hit me. One of my best friends was so again going overseas, and this again, I don't know if it's an excuse. I think it's a combination of lack of time, laziness, which ties into excuse. But when I was in Spain, again, one of my best friends, I didn't talk to him rarely. I was there less than a year, but like didn't talk to him almost at all that like whole time I was over there. So when I got back, and we're in a group chat together, so he saw like the group chat. I started becoming more active in the group chat again. So he hit me up on the side and he was like, hey, like, what's up, man? Like, how you been? Like, we haven't talked. I think he might have called me or I called him. And he said, like, verbatim, he was like, again, this is one of my, like, good. Picture like like me hearing this from you, but he was like, dude, I thought something happened between us. I thought we weren't boys anymore. Like, he was like, I had been racking my brain. Like, what did I do? And he was like freaking out. Like, I thought I lost you as a friend. I just didn't know because you weren't. And he might have reached out to me a couple times and maybe I didn't respond because I think he wouldn't just think that out the blue. For me to have, this is a dude that knows so much about me. Like, he went to college with me. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, how could you think that, dude? Like, I'm never going to just leave you. I was like, you would have to like physically harm my mom or something for me to not be my boy. Like, how could you think that? He was like, bro, there was no communication for so long. He was like, I think I hit you up a couple times and like you didn't respond. So I thought I did something.
And you ghosted him?
Bro, I get it. Like, I don't even know. But bro, I kid you not, I teared up when he said that. Coming from him, I teared up on the phone. I said, I will never let that happen again. My calls between him aren't as scheduled as ours, but like I usually talk to him about once every 2 weeks. That was such a wake up call, but a moment of reflection for me. I was like, I fell off. I really been slipping up. If one of my closest friends thought that, bro, that like rocked my world. So, and it didn't take me my whole life to realize. So that for me is like this one. I'm very conscious of staying in touch with people, and again, yeah, like being overseas was the easy excuse because like time difference. Like when it's my night, it's your day. When it's your day, it's my night. It was like legitimately hard to communicate. Like you've been in Japan, like it is legitimately difficult. But at some point, at some time, you gotta do something.
You reminded me of, we said, one of the lowest forms of communication is just text.
Yeah.
One of the highest levels of communications is just sending reels, shorts to each other on Instagram or whatever, sending memes to each other. I'm like, dude, like, now we're boys if we're sending memes to each other. I could be at work and you send me the funniest whatever ever, and then obviously I'm not busting out laughing because I'm at work.
You're at work.
I'm like, yo, that was funny. But then because of I get sidetracked or something, I leave that on red, or I just double tap for that thumbs up thing. Yeah. And then you'll be like, oh damn, like I thought I sent something funny, but he just just read it. But then in reality, I could be, I was like, yo, that was so fire, and just never, So that's another thing that happens to me. It's just that you just there's no way around it. You just have to have a face-to-face or just at least a phone conversation to overcome.
Yeah, like you said, even just something. I would say just like literally anything. You said memes or whatever. I think that one's kind of, I don't want to say self-explanatory on how to mitigate, but it's really just dedicate the time. Like tell yourself, like, I am going to reach out to maybe pick up a person a month, or if you have the ability, the time and space, a person a week, a family member a month, a family member a quarter. If your family is like really big or not that big, whatever. But I think that one is just pure dedication. The regret of not allowing oneself to be happier.
Yeah, I'm like having a hard time just separating that from not living a life true to yourself.
Yeah.
And kind of tying that into not having the courage to express my feelings. Not allowing myself to be happy. What are your thoughts on that? You're better at articulating ideas into words.
To the point I think you were just saying, I think it kind of captures the other four. Like it's like if I put all the other four things we just talked about in a basket, that basket of things would be not allowing myself to be happier. Like those all those things directly correlate to one not being happier by the end of their life if they're sitting and reflecting back. So now with that, I'm trying to think of like what topics aren't on this list, I guess, that would make me get to the end of my life and be like, or like right now I'm actively working on to make myself purely more happier. Again, I don't want to speculate. I don't have a family yet, but I could see maybe somebody like me not dedicating enough time with my family, or, you're married, so like just dedicated time with my wife, or I think this is kind of like a catch-all one.
I went through a period of life where I have a reason for, I was like, why do I deserve to be happy? And I had an answer to that.
That's deep.
But I want to hear your thoughts on it. Why would anyone say, "Oh, I'm not going to allow myself to be happy"? In what world does that make sense ever?
I don't think anybody has that thought unless they've done something egregious and now view themselves as like a bad human or like not deserving of life. Almost, it's kind of a morbid thought, but like unless I'm like a serial killer, and then after that I'm like, you know what? I don't deserve happiness. Like, what did I do? I have immense regret. I don't deserve to be happy. So removing all extreme examples like that, I can't think of why anybody would want to deprive themselves of happiness, dude. Like, now what this question leads me to believe is like a philosophical question, maybe. Like, is everyone born, like when you're a blank slate, does everyone deserve happiness?
I don't think anyone deserves anything. They just take action to make themselves happier. It's a choice that they make.
Yeah. Okay, so that's another good point. Like, is happiness a choice? Which, this might be controversial. I think yes.
Absolutely.
I think it is.
Absolutely it is.
But I like what you said, too. I don't think anybody... Would you say? You said you don't think anybody deserves anything? Or
why does anyone deserve anything? Is it a God-given right to be fed?
Yeah.
Like death is a natural part. If you don't eat, you're gonna die, and death is a natural part of how the entire nature works. So it's not a God-given right to eat. You just make yourself eat. You choose to eat, because your body requires it.
I think if you're born though, you're alive, and I would say you deserve life, maybe.
I think life is a choice too, to an extent. Like, you can't control outside factors where if you get killed, I mean, you didn't really have control of that.
Yeah.
For the most part. I think life is a choice too, because you can, well, first of all, you can choose to end life. So that is a choice right there. And then even in living life, there are certain things like having purpose, working, having a good mental, having friends and family, which we kind of covered in a lot of things that make you live longer. It's proven that if you do certain things in life, you live to be longer, right? So I think life is a choice at the end of the day.
So what do we think? What do we think is do we think this list is the key components to the pursuit of happiness? Like, if you and I had to make up a list, even just for us, like, what do we think are the keys to pursuing happiness?
Now that you said that, I think it is. Now that you said that, it kind of made sense. I thought this was just like a random 5 of the regret. But if you twist regret, if you're happy for every minute of your life, you probably wouldn't have regret.
Right. No.
And as a human, first, once you get the basic needs out of the way, like your shelter, food,
water, shelter,
love, once you get all those kind of taken care of, your life's mission is to be happy. So by doing these 4 other things, true to yourself, not working so hard, which kind of frees up other parts of your life, having the courage to express your feelings and stay in touch with friends and family, or just maintaining relationships, that makes you happier. Yeah, I'll leave it at what you said. I think you phrased it much better, but it is definitely major components of pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And it just kind of hit me just now when you said that.
I definitely think there's a lot of parallel at a minimum. Like this list is mostly, or if somebody had all these things, right, I could see them. I don't want to say basic. I don't want to minimize them to basic, but like having most of the components to be happy, because you could have all these things and like something can still go terribly wrong where you're not happy, even though you've you know who you are and you're true to yourself, even though you express yourself, even though you have a good relationship with friends and family. Like something could still, your house could burn down and you could have a stroke of bad luck, and like sure, but like intrinsically fulfilled, I think all these things, it could be other things, but I think all these things would go in that category. You said something interesting. You said you think the mission of life is happiness. What do you define? Like, do you think mission, I guess purpose, like of life is to be happy?
Genetically, your purpose in life is to survive, 1, and 2 is to reproduce. After that, it's kind of pursuing your mission, your purpose, which if you do that, I think you'll be happy. So in turn, like I didn't say directly, it's kind of indirectly, but by pursuing what you're meant to do, it will make you happy, which kind of, if you rephrase that, you are pursuing happiness.
Yeah. But then first you have to figure out what you're meant to do, which is
right, which is a whole another battle in itself. But it's kind of weird. That's weird too, because I know for sure I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
As like my purpose of my life. I know that I don't know that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm very happy with my life.
Okay.
Majority of the time, maybe out of the month, I may be unhappy for about, I don't know, day and a half, maybe.
Okay.
If that. So even though I don't have purpose, I'm still happy, which is...
So I have a question for you that you just made me think of. So is there a difference between being happy and being fulfilled?
Yes. Yes.
I agree.
Yes. Okay.
You can choose, like you said, we said we think happiness is a choice, right? To some extent. Now, obviously it may be harder for certain people to choose happiness over others depending on your circumstance, but largely like within whatever situation, like you can choose kind of your attitude. I'm a strong believer in like attitude is a choice, attitude and effort. One of my high school friends' dads used to say all the time, it's ingrained in me, attitude and effort. Like you can always control that, but you can choose happiness, but like I don't think you can choose to be fulfilled. You have to do something that thing fulfills you. Like you said, you're happy now, but because you don't know your purpose yet, I would argue that you're not. I mean, even to some extent, but like you're not like fully fulfilled.
Now that you said that, I know I'm not.
Yeah.
I know that I can do more in my life, more with my life. At a certain point, I do want to be fulfilled to a certain extent, but I know there's a lot more things that I could offer to myself, to my family, and possibly to the world would lead to fulfillment, hopefully.
That's why we're on our path to thrive. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. So, right, in summation, the book that this is all derived from is The Top 5 Regrets of Dying, A Life Transformed by the Dearly Departing by Bronnie Ware. And admittedly, I haven't read it yet. Definitely going to be on the list. B and I share our reading list, and we bounce books off each other all the time. So that's definitely going to go in my collection. But I have heard some podcasts that talk about similar things and like looked up some things about the book, which is, again, where this list is derived from. So if you guys are just wondering where this came from or wanted some further insight on it, other viewpoints, the book is there. Again, feel free to check that out. This is another episode of Rebel Wisdom. Great conversation for the day. B, it was always good talking to you, my man. That's all I got for us.